Well, Broadway fans, we've seen her as a villainous computer in SpongeBob SquarePants, and now she is a girl who is obsessed with play rehearsal. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby. Joining me is Stephanie Shu from Be More Chill. Thank you so much for being here with me.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks for having me.
of course, this show is proving very popular on Broadway, but it's had a long road to Broadway. And you've been one of the people who have been in this cast since the original production in Two Rivers Theater back in 2015. Can you just describe how you got involved with the project back then?
Yeah. So at that time, I was mostly doing experimental theater, like very, very, very downtown theater, and was doing a lot more TV. And this was just kind of like a regular old audition. And I almost missed the callback because I was in LA for my first ever screen test. And they were like, they really want to see you. Can you fly back in? Screen test, the nature of screen tests are like, you fly in, you fly out, So it's everything's already super fast. And they were like, can you jump on the earliest flight possible to come back and meet the creative team? And so I did. And I stepped into the room, and Stephen Brackett, who was the director, he looked at my resume. And the most recent show I had done was a show called War Lesbian at Dixon Place, which, if you know, is like a super downtown theater. Um, and Stephen Brackett said, "Oh my gosh, you were in War Lesbian? I heard that show was amazing." And he comes from a really similar circle that I come from. And so I immediately had this feeling of um, home. I was like, oh, this is a safe space for me to play and create. And um, so I booked it. And so it was my first ever equity union musical, actually. Um, and at that time, I was going through a separation. And so I was like, oh, this is great. I'll just do this little musical in New Jersey, and it'll be great, It'll be a great transition for me and my partner. And lo and behold, here we are on Broadway.
And that was back in 2015. We're in 2019 now.
Yeah.
What for you, you're playing Christine, what has sort of changed the most for you in terms of the performance as the show has evolved?
Yeah, so each iteration of Be More Chill, we've called Two River 1.0, the signature 2.0, and Broadway's 3.0. And especially between 2.0 and 3.0, we were very adamant about deepening all the characters, but definitely, especially Christine. Um, as I have met so many of the young fans, and as our time in this society has changed so much in the last 4 years, I've really been inspired and empowered by young people. And um, I realized that for them, Christine is such an example of what it means to be a strong female leading character. And so between 2.0 and 3.0, we were really going back to the text and making sure that we were supporting that and leaning into that even more. Um, One of my favorite pieces of fan art that I've ever received is like a picture of Christine, and there's a stack of feminist literature right next to her. And, it's just been a large cooperative, or it's almost been a really expansive collaboration, in the sense that not only is it us in the creative process, but because of this trajectory, we're also learning from the world at large as to what about this show resonates, and moving in that direction.
Yeah. And speaking of the fans, there's when you go into the show, for anyone who hasn't been there, every song gets this insane applause and
Yeah.
cheering, and every character. It feels like a rock concert, is how the fans treat it.
Yeah.
What is it like performing in that atmosphere?
I'm curious as to, do you remember what day of the week you went?
Oh, I think it was a Friday I went.
Oh, a Friday.
Weekend, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The weekends are particularly wild. it's funny because a Broadway house is much larger than the Signature, for example, that it feels actually that even when the audiences are super raucous, that it really like fills the space in such an incredible way. And, you know, live theater is incredible and you want to experience people experiencing. But I think I'll never forget doing this show at the Signature and having a completely sold out run. We weren't even part of the Signature season. We were a rental, like, you know, and people from all over the world, from Brazil, were coming to see our off Broadway production of Be More Chill in the event that they may never have an opportunity to see it again. So, in a weird way, the Broadway experience has felt a little bit more normal in that um, the excitement feels like it has space to the theater has space to hold that vibrancy.
Yeah. And I should mention, this is a show that really took off in an unconventional way because a lot of people, these fans, discovered it via the cast album from the original production, which went crazy on streaming services. And it's really struck a chord, I think, with young people in a way that very few musicals do. What do you think about the show really connects with them and makes them respond like that?
You know, people have said that, you know, there's so many musicals about young people right now. And I'm like, yeah, sure, but they're not all the same. And I think ours really, really, really encourages and embodies um, the mission to be yourself and to celebrate yourself. You know, Jeremy here, he is kind of a nobody and he goes through all this, you know, takes this squip just so that he can get the girl, and the girl is like crazy Christine Canigula weirdo. And it doesn't matter like how hot the other girls are, the thing that he wants in his heart is this strange bird that has so much truth inside of her. And you never it's really rare to see love stories too that are like that, especially when you're young. You know, I remember being in high school and the like hierarchies of beauty were so prevalent, and it was so rare to see someone who is as strange as Christine is with so much heart at the same time be an object of affection. And so I think that young people are really drawn to the weirdness of it all, you know, and a space where they can go feel like they can cheer really loudly for this musical that they love that affirms their own growth. Um, it's funny, I had an interview and the person who was interviewing me, she was saying that she brought her niece who's in middle school, and that her niece was like very invested in the love story, which I haven't really heard that feedback. And it makes sense to me, and it brought me a lot of joy because um, yeah, everybody loves love. So it's awesome to hear that this is the love story that they're invested in, you
Yeah.
know, which is so abnormal in so many ways.
Well, I wanted to talk about Christine's strangeness because she is just such an oddball. You enter the stage and you're doing like crazy theater exercises and you're all over the place. And as an actor, that character just seems so open-ended for where you could go with it. And I'm curious to know like how you found, that outrageous physicality and everything you bring to it.
Yeah, so Stephen Brackett, I really commend him for his ability to create um, a rehearsal process that is very yes and. Um, so he really gave all of us, and especially me, so much room to play. And you know, I sometimes I think about play rehearsal, and I'm like, I don't know where any of this came from. It just came from the ether. Like, not there was nothing in the script that ever said when you're doing I love play rehearsal. When Christine Canigula sings I love play rehearsal, she punches the sky. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing in there. It's just the song. And so much of my background came from not only experimental theater but from comedy. And so I think it was the merging of those two worlds that that sort of that she came out of. I did a lot of physical comedy before I was doing specifically musical theater, and I worked with this woman, Liz Swados, who did a lot of that kind of work. And in the world of like sketch and improv, you know, it's all physical and just in the moment. And so I think there's a lot of that is inside of Christine.
Yeah. I Love Play Rehearsal is one of her, I would say that's probably the song that gets, or one of your songs that gets the biggest response. What is it like getting to just command the stage during that whole number?
It's so fun. I mean, sometimes when I step out of it, I'm like, I cannot believe how crazy she is and how crazy we made her, but I love it. And going back to the, you know, having a background in comedy, we created that number so that there's always room for play. And that is such a pleasure to be doing 8 shows a week, but to have space to continue to play and make it new every single night and sort of read the audience and ride the wave with them. You know, some audiences can handle more strangeness than others. And so I'm always very mindful of like how I'm crafting her journey as the journey is unfolding. Um, but what's also been really inspiring is that so my friend Wesley Taylor, who played Plankton and SpongeBob, he teaches this acting class, and a lot of young people bring in I Love Play Rehearsal for their audition songs or like things that they want to work on. And he was telling me that when they bring it in, the part where she says, and there's also a part of me that wants to do this, and she makes a weird noise, that the young people are really timid and they're very scared to be that big or that weird. And that has really, again, in terms of this large collaboration process that Be More Chill has become, it really reinforced and encouraged me to not only be weird for the sake of being weird, but as a space of possible liberation so that young people can come and see that song and that show and that strangeness and find in themselves space and courage to expand from their own like two-dimensional selves, you know, or three-dimensional selves. But it's scary sometimes to let go in that way, you know. I think about like dance floors at weddings and you're just like, y'all, come on now. Come on now.
Well, I think some of that strangeness is what makes her such a fan favorite character. Um, and she is also, you know, has a lot of integrity because she's one of the only people who doesn't want to take the squib, that supercomputer that makes you cool. What would you say are her sort of defining characteristics?
I think that she is a young person who, I think she's a huge empath and very aware of what's going on in the high school, but also she is okay with all the questions and uncertainties of growing up. And I think that's why she doesn't take a squib is, you know, she has this line of maybe I have some stuff to figure out, but I don't want a squib to do it for me. I want to figure it out myself, you know? And I find that to be such an beacon of truth in her that she is able to be uncomfortable and yet still understand that that is a part of her growth and allow that imperfection to be a part of her journey. Um, so I think that is a huge part of her.
Um, well, another group of people who thought you were a fan favorite of theirs was the Lucille Lortel nominators, because you
Yay!
were nominated for your performance in the off-Broadway version. What is it like to see your name listed there?
Um, well, I forgot that we also did this show off Broadway. Like, I feel like I live under a rock sometimes when it comes to those things. And I think when I found out, I was really surprised, and also it's an honor to be nominated in the off Broadway um, awards because that is so much of my home. And you know, Rags and Parkland, you know, Andrew Butler and we like went to college together and have worked together for years. all of those people are my friends. So I'm just so excited to celebrate, because before shows go to Broadway, they come from other places, you know, whether it's out of town or off Broadway, you know, these spaces that there's a little bit more room to play and try something out. And I will always, always, always feel perhaps like the most at home, you know, off Broadway. And so I'm just really looking forward to spending both the breakfast and the ceremony celebrating so many people that I love, that will be in that room.
Mhm. And another thing that I wanted to discuss before I let you go is because another way you're very lucky with the roles you played is the two Broadway credits you have, SpongeBob and Be More Chill. Um, the cast both skew very young,
Yeah,
which is a rare thing, and they're also incredibly diverse, which
totally.
unfortunately is a rare thing. I'm curious what your experience has been with that. Do you see like that as a change that hopefully is coming to the landscape?
Yeah, I mean, it is every part of my intention to create more space for people. Um, I really believe that diversity or visibility is not just about who gets the job, but it's about people who come and then feel like they have that they feel seen and therefore heard, and so that their participation in this society becomes validated because the stages or the screens that they're witnessing are including them as human beings and as people to celebrate. um, you know, I think that for a long time, I didn't know what my place. Broadway just wasn't on my radar for a long time. Um, and I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I just didn't know what my place in it would be. You know, I I don't fit like the King and I or Miss Saigon. That's like not my wheelhouse, you know? So I just didn't know. Um, and I think the first time that I really realized how special it was that I got to be on Broadway was, um, that I specifically in my body and my demographic, everything. When I left SpongeBob, I left uh, over the summer, and I was one of the first. I was the first cast member to leave the show, and my replacement, Catherine Ricafort, is also Asian. And I was like, Karen, the computer is a computer. Nothing ever, like, there's no description that this computer has to be an Asian computer, you know? And I saw that she replaced me, and I watched her and she was amazing. And I was like, oh my gosh, that may continue to be that way because it was me. Um, and when I am at the stage door for at the Lyceum for Be More Chill, it's just like so wildly clear as to why so many young Asian people are at our theater with their parents. Um, it's so clear, you know. And I had this experience. One of my favorite memories thus far, there were these there was this young Asian girl and her mother, and she was cosplaying. She was wearing her Christine Canigula like green neon dress, and there were these two older Asian women next to her. They were sitting in the front row, and these older Asian women, they were like, you know, the age that your grandma might be, and in Chinese we would call that like your popo. And at the end of the show, I saw these two little grandmas, and I at our curtain call, it's like a huge dance party, and I like went to high five their hands because I was so happy that they were there, and they held my hands like they were so infinitely proud of me. Like, these were people, women who are in their maybe 70s or 80s, and I could feel them on like a cultural level, like holding me the way that my grandmother would hold my hands, you know? And at the stage door, I asked the girl who was cosplaying, I was like, oh, were those your grandparents? She's like, they were just two random older Asian women who were coming to see Be More Chill. And they were like, not musical theater people. It was very clear. They didn't know what was happening. They were like, it's very bright. So that was so wild to me that I thought that they were all related and that they came together. But these two women were completely not related to anyone in the cast, and just came. And um So that to me is so special. And I know, I mean, this Broadway season is so beautiful, and I think those spaces are more often than not. And I believe in our ability, not only as a society but as a theater community, to continue to move in that direction, um, because I think it is the only way. You know, and it's the world that we live inside of. And um, theater has such potential to make change, so it must be inclusive.
Absolutely. Well, that's an incredible story. I think we'll leave it off there. So
Cool.
congratulations again with your Lortel nomination, and I hope all that success continues for the rest of
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Everyone stay subscribed to Gold Derby for all our updates during Tony season. Thank you again, Stephanie.
Yeah. Bye.